Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Version 1, a podcast where interesting people come to talk about their creative processes, imposter syndrome, inspirations, failures along the way, and much more. I'm your host, Waverly, and we are at My Friend's Basement Podcast Studio in Bushwick, Brooklyn. Follow the show on Instagram at Version 1 Podcast and subscribe to our Substack, version1podcast.substack.com. And you can also find me on buymeacoffee.com/Waverly Colville. You can listen to this episode normally or head over to YouTube to watch the video version and leave us a comment or a nice review. I am here this week with Jen Ruiz. She is a travel journalist, author, and content creator. Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Waverly. I'm happy to be here.
I am so excited to talk to you because as we were chatting a little bit before we started recording, you single-handedly have given me so many opportunities in the travel journalism world. And I've learned so much from you, from your newsletter and your book and your content. So I'm so excited to jump into all of that with you because you do so much in the travel media space and you're one of the biggest players in it. And so, yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. Can we just start with having you introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. And thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words. I just want to say, definitely it all comes down to you, your work that you put into it. Like I let you know about the opportunities, but really it comes down to how much you take advantage of them. So you have so much to be proud of.
Oh,
My
thank
name
you.
is Jen Ruiz. And of course, no, Waverly, you should be so proud. And so because not everybody can do this and not everybody can make that transition. And I think you have that in common with me, that kind of career transition and trying to find what happens next. So I used to practice law and I ended up taking a 12 trips in 12 months challenge the year before my 30th birthday that led me to go to my first travel conference, have my first press trip, and really realize that this was something that I wanted to pursue for a living. At the end of that year, I self published my first book on finding affordable flights. And that was how I initially made the transition from practicing law to being a full time travel writer, blogger, and content creator.
When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Rock star, like a Britney Spears kind of thing, I think was always a top of mind, a performer. So, and I think that these are still very similar threads, right? So the idea of being on stage, of having an audience that responded to you was very invigorating. And that was the same thing that made me want to be a trial lawyer. You're on stage essentially in front of 12 jurors and you have to convince them that your client is, the one that they should be voting for. And I think now, as a travel writer, it's very similar. I do, public speaking, persuasive writing, and I convince people, hey, this is a destination you should go and visit. These are the things you should do while you're there. So it is a similar thread of public speaking, advocacy, and writing and performance.
For sure, there's definitely a through line there. And even just like creative storytelling and emotional storytelling, too, I think is a through line through all of that as well. When did you figure out that you love to travel before you even figured out it could be a career?
I My mom was a teacher, so we never really vacationed anywhere glamorous, but we were able to go and do fun things regionally. Like I grew up in Philadelphia, and so sometimes we would go to Amish country, and there we would learn about how they lived without electricity and how they made ice cream from scratch and all these things. In Pennsylvania, you have Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water, the architecture marble, and so that was something that I saw as a child just on our summer vacations, and I thought this was really cool. Like, this man built a house that has a waterfall flowing through it. Like, that's awesome. And so I think I always had first an idea early on that travel doesn't have to be super far, that you can travel regionally and that you can learn and experience and have that newness some close to you. You don't have to go across the ocean, across the world to do that. And I think my mom being a teacher was somebody that really instilled that in me. But then for when I graduated high school, my mom and me went on a 2 week trip of Europe, at the time with Trafalgar tours through AAA, like back in the day before there were online booking platforms or anything like that. And we did Italy, France, the UK, Switzerland. So, like, kind of the highlights of Europe. And it was really wonderful. And I realized there that I actually could get us around better than the tour that we were on. And so, with my Europe for Dummies book, I was like, I'm pretty sure we could take this day trip to Stonehenge. It says you just get right on the train. It drops us right off there. I'm pretty sure I can get us there. Like I can read. I have really great comprehension. And this book has everything laid out. And so I used that book to navigate us through several day trips. We ditched the tours a lot. And that was when we actually had more fun, right? I realized I could do this better than the people that we paid to do this for us at 17. And so then after that, I studied a lot. So it wasn't until I was about to leave law school that I did a summer in Australia as part of the Australian Law Reform Commission. I thought that I was going to be done all that schooling and not have any studying abroad to show for it. So I definitely hustled to get something in. And then that was my first time really like solo across the world from everybody. Like nobody's on my time zone. Nobody picks up the phone when you call. Like everybody's asleep. So it was very much my first introduction to you are alone. Good luck in the world. And it was hard. I think I had like after the 3 week mark, I think is your homesickness mark. And if you can make it past that, you're kind of okay. But for the first 2 weeks, you're like, oh, nothing here tastes like it does in the US. Like, they don't use sugar anywhere in the same way. And so I was like, everything this is so tart. And so it's just something that you get accustomed to. And that was my first big experience of being abroad on my own. And then after that, I started solo traveling as a lawyer.
I love that. And yes, you go into so much more detail about that in your book, 12 Trips in 12 Months, which I absolutely loved. I listened to the audiobook, so I heard your voice narrate it, which was really cool. And it was really
Thank you.
cool to listen to because it was for people who haven't read it. It's about your 29th year, you're turning 30, and you wanted to do all of these trips, and it was like this personal challenge you had for yourself. But it's about so much more than just travel. You go into relationships with men, you go into relationships with your family, you go into all these different personal things, and it was really cool for specifically me to read right now because I'm 29 and I'm going to be 30 in about 6 months, and so it was kind of cool to read where I'm just like, whoa, like this is like she's in the exact same sort of like age that I was or that I am, and it was really beautiful. And I also loved you going into detail about your parents' relationship, and they were living in Rochester, right? And I don't know if they still do, but I'm from Buffalo, and you guys went to Toronto, and I was like, oh, I used to go to Toronto all the time growing up, just being from that region, and so that was a really cool thing. And I also loved when you spoke about finding empowerment and confidence in yourself, especially when you had gone through so many failed relationships. And that was something that I really related to personally because I was a big solo traveler as well, or still am, but I used to do a lot more of it when I was a little younger. And I also like went through a very similar journey of like, dating all these European men who really didn't give a shit about me at the end of the day, but it was a fun time in my life. I don't regret it. But as I was reading your book, I was like, oh my gosh, like we're twins.
Yes, and that was really the goal. I think it's hard to feel like you're the only one experiencing this, especially at 29, if you're like, oh, I still don't have it all figured out yet. And all these people look like they do, and they're having. So I think that was my goal. I really wanted to reach a woman and have her feel like she understands my struggle. I'm not alone in this, and I am okay. Like I'm not late. I'm not behind. Like everything's happening the way that it should. And I really was hoping to give that inspiration to somebody in your shoes. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you put it perfectly. That's exactly what you did for me. So I really, really loved your book, and I encourage anyone listening to go pick it up from your local bookstore. But part of writing your book, you talk a lot about balancing because you were working full time as a lawyer during this time, but you were also
Yes.
teaching English on the side and also starting your blog and content creation. What was a typical day in your life back then? Because that sounds crazy. And I'm so like, wow, like, holy shit, how did she do it?
It is. It was a lot. And I think maybe because of that, some people are incredulous that that's what, like, how I actually did it or pulled it off. But I think when you don't have children, right, when you live alone, you do have a lot of flexibility and a lot of time and a lot of ability to do things like this. So I would wake up on the weekdays because I would be tired and have to go straight to work. I would wake up maybe like around 4, and then I would teach from like 4 to 8:30, and then I'd get ready and I'd go to work. Thankfully, my job was pretty close, so like a 10-minute commute, if that. So I'd be in work by 9 a.m. For the weekends, I would teach all night because the kids were in China. And so their schedule, they didn't have school that day. So they'd be able to learn all day. So I would teach from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. Like I'd be nocturnal and then I'd wake up and then and then when it's over, I'd just sleep a little bit of hours for the day. I would go to work from 9 to 5. Thankfully, I had a nonprofit because I had holidays, bank holidays. They did close at 5. They didn't have these whole like you're here till 1 a.m. kind of thing. And then after that, I would be home working on my own things. So figuring out how I'm planning these trips, figuring out what I'm doing for the blog, figuring out what conferences I'm attending. And this was on purpose. I wanted to be busy. I wanted to be so busy that I wasn't anxious and I wasn't worrying about anything. Like I wanted my mind to be occupied on something productive and a fun challenge for me. So yes, it absolutely was. And it did get to the overwhelmed point where I missed a trip to Morocco in November because I double booked and I ended up going to Buenos Aires instead, which maybe wasn't the best decision ultimately with how things turned out. And it was because I was at that point, like it was like a sprint to get in as much as I could because I really did feel like, oh, now it's almost over. Like now this really cool year, like it's almost done. So how can I fit in like as much as possible before it's over? Um, and I don't regret it at all. I'm so glad I did because that time did pass. Like my 20s are gone forever. And that was the whole point, was sending them out in a way that felt really momentous for me and that honored all the work that I had put in that decade prior.
Yeah, absolutely. How at the time did you deal with experiencing feeling overwhelmed, or if you had any feelings of burnout? Like what were some of the things you did that helped you get through it as you were going through this whole journey?
It was, there were a lot. I mean, I think there was one point where I came back because I would have like sometimes I'd have a flight that landed at 5 a.m. in Miami. And then I was working out of Naples, which is 2 hours from Miami. So then I drive 2 hours to Naples and then I change and then I'd go like straight into the office. And I remember one on like a Monday morning, like after a red eye flight that I just took back from some random country. And so I remember one day I was in the office and I swore like I fell asleep with my eyes open because like somebody was talking to me, but like I like wasn't there. I just was like my body was there. I can't like be here like acknowledging the things, but like I just went somewhere else. I was so tired. It helped a lot to have coworkers that were supportive of me. Definitely without them, I wouldn't have been able to do this. So the one coworker that ended up leaving me the dedication in the book, who has since passed. And so I always get very sad when I
Oh.
think of her. And when I read the chapter about her too, it was a little bit overwhelming because I hadn't really thought about her since, we were coworkers. We didn't work together anymore, but she always had that impact on me. And so she was very supportive. She always encouraged me to go after my dreams. And even though she wasn't necessarily the warmest like person on the outside, she kind of had this exterior, like a turtle shell. She was so soft on the inside. And once you really got, she was just so loving. So she was really helpful for me. And I'm very grateful to her. And then also I had other friends in the office that just would step in. But honestly, I worked so hard just to have everything done before I left the office so that unless there's an emergency eviction that somebody's coming in like when I'm gone and then somebody can handle it. But other than that, um, it was just trying to do as much as I could, trying to set up and anticipate as much as I could, trying to plan as much as I could. That helps a lot. So if I know I have everything, like I know planning is not sexy for many people when they're talking about travel. People glamorize spontaneity, but that spontaneity is not for people who are on a short time off, right? Spontaneity is not for people who have 48 hours in a destination. No, because you're going to arrive, it's going to be sold out. So they're not going to have reservations. You can't get in. Like, it's a waste. So I really felt like the only level of control that I could get over like this madness and this travel scheme and everything I'm doing is with planning and researching and building myself up so that I can handle whatever curveballs come my way.
Yeah, for sure. And during those early days of blogging and content creation, what did your creative process look like?
It was actually, so my first blog wasn't even travel related. It was 20chic.com. And it was because I knew I was in my 20s. I wanted to write lifestyle articles, and I had started contributing to elitedaily.com back when they were accepting contributors. And a lot of my articles did really well for them. I wrote more than 50 articles for them. They ended up getting, tens of millions of views. And that's how I got started as a freelance travel writer because then I had somebody reach out to me from Pace Magazine and ask me to write for their travel vertical. But really, when I was starting, the blog was the catch-all for any of the articles that weren't accepted by Elite Daily. So I would pitch it to Elite Daily. They didn't accept it. So it's like, okay, well, I already wrote it. I may as well publish it on my blog. So 20 Chic didn't really have a strategy. It was just like lifestyle, fun, cute things to talk about, things like that. And then I knew I wanted it to be more experiential, so I switched to What's John Up To. That was the second site that I almost shut down and stopped blogging altogether because I was like, it's just not clicking. Like this isn't it. But I knew that I wanted it to be more about the things I was doing, not just like these random articles and think pieces about like Kanye and Taylor's beef, or like or like
Uh-huh.
just random things. So um, I then, from What's Jen Up To, we landed on Jen on a Jet Plane, and that's when I decided to go all in on it. I didn't get Jen on a Jet Plane until 2016, and it was 2017 that I took the travel challenge. And also that same year that I went to my first travel conference, which I really credit as the game changer for me in blogging, because before that, I didn't know what I was doing. And so, at least in the 2017 conference, I'm aware of what I'm doing wrong. And then in 2018, I went back to TEDx and I did a full day SEO course, like a full day workshop, and that really changed how I looked at the articles I'm writing. So now it's not just one off article about this one place that I went to, but like interlinked, related articles that are linked back to each other in content pillars. So it definitely evolved, but it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to putting your creative energy into your blog, how do you balance sort of what SEO trends say is popular and what you should write about with maybe you want to write something that isn't super hot? So, like, how do you balance like sort of like feeding those two maybe sometimes competing desires?
Honestly, I think about things a lot from a business perspective. So if I'm writing about something that isn't trending on SEO, I would make it clickbaity. So it should be something that people are going to want to read regardless of whether it's a trending subject. So now it'll be like, my personal experience doing X, or, kind of the sensationalist headlines that you'll see on Business Insider. So like, I think when like I wrote for them, like I spent over $1,000 to stay a night at this giraffe hotel, something like that. So that's something I would write then. If I felt like I was going to steer away from SEO, I would write something that people would want to read independent of it having SEO value, because it's so sensationalist. It's drawing people in there, and they really want to know more about that. Otherwise, I would not be writing something that doesn't have an audience. And this applies not just for the blog, but I do the same thing for books. Um, I tell people all the time, like if you're writing a book and you haven't read, like your step one is not to write the book. Step one is to research the market and see if people are even looking for this. And with articles, and now it's not as big of a deal because Google SEO is not an end all be all for people, right? They've pulled back the traffic that they're giving people. People are outsourcing where they're getting their eyes from. But the idea is that if you're writing an article that isn't discoverable and that people can't find, it doesn't really matter what's inside that article. It could be the best article ever, but if nobody's ever going to find it, then they're not going to be able to see what it is that you put out for them to see. And so I think it's a matter of just understanding that SEO or any of these things that you're doing is just a way to reach your audience. So it's not necessarily affecting your messaging, but it's affecting your visibility. And once you have the audience, once they find you, then you can say what you need to say. You can get your content across in the way you need to. But if you're not discoverable, so if you're writing and just on the traditional SEO example, like 3 things or 3 days in X city, right? Versus I had the best time in X city. Here's why everybody should go. Like one post is going to come up on Google search results more so than another. And that doesn't mean that you can't still cover the same content of I had the best time and here's why you should go inside this post that's being discoverable. It just means you have to learn how to play the game to be discoverable. And same thing goes for authors that are like, I just want to write. I don't want to worry about marketing. No, your people have to find your book in order to read your book and be impacted by it.
Yeah, for sure. And during those early days, as you're starting to be a freelance travel journalist, you're starting to be a blogger, you're starting to do content. I know from my own personal experiences, those days can be really hard sometimes. And sometimes the hardest part of doing something or wanting to become something or make a career change is just getting started. Because once you're in it, like, it's more of a domino effect, or at least hopefully it is. But sometimes the hardest part is getting started and those early days. So how did you keep up your motivation when maybe you were having like a dry period of not that much work, or opportunities being rejected or pitches being rejected, things like that? How did you say like, no, like I got to keep going, like I got to keep up my motivation?
if you're somebody that's really trying to do this like full time as a living, there will never be a point where you're like, everything is smooth sailing. So it will be like almost every single day you have to reassess and keep up your motivation and have like constantly the rugs are being pulled out from under you, right? Like in March 2020, when the pandemic hit, I had been working so hard to build my blog up and my traffic up. I had hit over 50,000 sessions a month. I was with Mediavine and monetized with them, making over $100 a day on Mediavine passive income. And when the pandemic hit, that went down from $100 a day to $2 to $3 a day, like overnight. TikTok. I've had my TikTok now that TikTok's being banned, but I've before I was giving a talk on TikTok, and right before I gave it, somebody I guess reported one of my videos, and none of my videos are controversial. They're all travel. Like nothing at all about my videos are controversial, but when you go viral, people will report things. And so my account was taken down for a bit. And it was right before I gave a talk on TikTok. And I remember how embarrassing, like, they may be looking right now to go and find my account on TikTok and they're not going to be able to pull it up because I've been like banned. And so I feel like I've gotten so much at any point in time, like somebody can pull the rug out from under you. And so I think the really important thing is to not at all be shocked and not at all be like, oh, this is happening. This is a bad thing. Just be like, oh, this is happening. This is totally expected. Like, okay, what's the next rug I can run to? Like, I compared a lot to like the Super Mario Brothers and how like if a brick is going to be falling, you just got to run to the next brick. Like, you can't be sitting here worried about what's happening behind you, who's coming, who's copying you. Like, you just have to keep going because in this digital media space, things change so fast that if you get stuck in one way of doing things, if you get stuck on I was monetizing my blog. I was number one on Google search results. I was making 10,000 a month on SEO only. And now that's gone and I don't know what to do. That's going to happen like every day in this industry. So I think really the key is to just keep going, expect the downfalls because they happen, diversify your income so that if one thing is completely yanked away from you, you just jump to the other things and never ever ever worry about who's copying you, who's coming behind you because everybody will be copying you and everybody will be coming behind you. Sometimes you can file like, copyright infringement things if they, blatantly take your video, post it as theirs. But for the most part, you can't worry about people who are coming after you. You have to worry about keeping doing new things yourself. And everybody will just continuously, be in your shadows, but you will be pioneering new and new things. So you just have to keep going. And it's hard, but it doesn't ever get to a point where you're like, oh, I made it. Everything is smooth, easy sailing. Everything is stable. And like all these platforms are going to be around forever. Like it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's fantastic advice. Now, when you were, after you were done with the 12 trips in 12 months, how did you know it was time to leave your full-time job and dive headfirst into travel writing and content creation?
Well, I had run out of PTO. So that was very important, right? Like I wasn't going to be able to take more trips soon. Um, Pardon me. But I had a goal to first prove to myself that I could make money remotely. So throughout that year, since I was teaching English online, I already had that remote job and I knew that I could survive off of those earnings. If I just really dedicated myself to teaching, I could make enough to cover my bills. So I had that as like my fallback, my backup plan. And then I wanted to prove to myself that I could monetize and make money from my own brand. Because so far I had made money writing for other people, made money teaching for other people, but I hadn't made money like me, somebody paying and buying something from me, Jen. And so that was when I decided to self publish my first book. And it was a great proof of concept. Like, this was one book. This is how much money I'm making now monthly off of this book. So I just have to scale it, write more books, and I'll make more money. Great. Okay, I can do that. And in the meantime, I'll be teaching English online until I can scale it. Awesome. Let's go from there. And so that was those were really the two things I had in place that allowed me to quit.
Awesome. And how does your creative process differ when it comes to writing blog posts or articles for a travel magazine or a travel website versus writing a book?
So those are all three different things. So blog posts, I would have it as I've done research, I've done SEO research, and I know what people are searching for on this topic. Because maybe your post of how to spend a long weekend in X city, 36 hours in X city, and 10 things to do in X city could all have wildly different traffic and traction. And so you want to pick the one that has the most traction. So the most people, so that's how I'm going to be focusing on what I'm writing on a blog. And I probably won't be writing my personal essays on a blog. I can, but again, I would have to be pushing those out to get people to click on it because they want to read and know about me. So I feel like there's a finite time for that push. Like it's going to be the initial push of this thing has just been released, and then the people who know me are going to be interested in reading about it. But after that, it's not going to kind of have evergreen potential, to continue bringing in traffic. So I probably would focus that more on freelance writing. So for freelance writing, I would do something that wouldn't live on my site because I have regretted before doing freelance writing for a couple $100s, and then I've done for you this outlet an evergreen SEO optimized article that could be bringing me traffic and passive income moving forward. But now I've written it for you to bring you traffic and passive income and even outrank some of my other blogger friends, right? Because I've had editors write me specifically with an article in mind that I then go and search and I see that my blogger friend is ranking number one for that same topic. So that felt like shooting myself in the foot, kind of. So after a while, I decided to stop doing any of that work. So for my blog, it's anything that's going to be evergreen, that's going to keep driving me traffic. For the freelance writing, it's something like a personal narrative or something that I feel would benefit from having the platform of those outlets so that I can get wider exposure for this like really personal story. And then for the book, originally it was I had always wanted to write the memoir. I knew that this was a story that was in my mind and my heart, and I wanted to bring to fruition. But I think it's really important. A lot of people are writers and they romanticize writing, and it's like this really noble profession of like starving artists. I do not subscribe to the starving artist mentality. And I do not want to be poor. So I, from the very beginning, uh, looked at my writing as a business. And I think that's where a lot of writers don't do. So a lot of writers are like, I'm just going to write the thing I feel compelled to write. I'm going to put it out into the world, and however it's received, like, so be it. I was like, no, what do people want to read? Like again, similar thing with the blog post. If I'm not going to sit here and write a book that I want to write and try to shove it down people's throats. Instead, I'd rather them are like they're knocking on my door trying to buy this book that they're super eager to buy. So that's why the first book that I wrote was not my memoir. It was the Affordable Flight Guide. Because the questions that I had been getting throughout that entire year were, how are you flying to these places? How are you getting there? How are you affording to travel? How did you find that $16 flight to Ecuador? How did you get to New Zealand for $38? So I didn't realize I had inadvertently been marketing my book already for a year just by sharing all my flight deals and all these trips that I was going on. So that was what people were asking me most about. So that's why I wrote my first book on that. And then the first three books were a travel series. After that, it was a remote work series. 25 Ways to Work from Home launched in April 2025. I already had it in the works in January, but then when the pandemic hit, I was like, let me wrap this up and get it out ASAP because people want this, right? Like that's my reasoning behind the book. People want this. At least with self-published books, because you really are pushing and you have to make those sales yourself. Then when the pandemic hit is when I didn't have any more excuses. I wasn't traveling. So I really had the time to sit and put together a proper book proposal, try to get a proper book deal. And that's when I pursued the memoir.
Yeah. What was the actual like process like writing your memoir?
It took a few years. The actual writing part, I kind of wish I had started it earlier. Um, because there is a difference between writing memoir many years out and writing it kind of closer to it. And I think there's pros and cons of both. I think sometimes you need the distance from the memoir to be able to see the lessons, to process it not without as much emotion. But I think sometimes being close to it helps you remember the details a little bit more vibrantly. So, like with this one, since I was writing it several years after I had completed the challenge, I found myself going back on my Facebook and like seeing the posts that I was doing then to try to get into my mindset of where I was then, what were the things that happened, what stood out to me. Whereas now this new sequel that I'm writing, it's taking place in 2023, so less than 2 years ago. And it was much harder to write. Pardon me. It was much harder to write because it was very close in like it feels very personal, right? It feels like I don't have enough distance from this. A memoir is personal. So it was a much more emotional writing process, but easier to write from recollection.
Yeah. Do you have like a daily routine? Like you write from this hour to this hour, anything like that?
I write in the mornings when I'm most creative. I do. at the end of the day, I'm overwhelmed. I don't have like creative juices. I think and it depends on you and the person. But for me, I feel like when I wake up is when I'm most like unbothered by the world. I have my most raw energy, where I could just really crank things out. As the day goes on, I get tired. My brain wants to disconnect. I just want to like veg out. So I try to write as much as I can in the mornings, and I leave administrative things or proofreading or things like that for the evening.
What are the most challenging parts of writing something so personal based on your life, your love life, your family, your trauma, things like that, versus, writing a travel guide that maybe is a little less personal? So, like, what are the most challenging parts of that?
The reviews. So I've said this time and time again, it's really harsh because, and I generally know better than to like read comments, read reviews. Again, I'm not new to this game. I know better in general. But I think it's hard because, and I think I stopped reading. I think when they came out, I read like the first few and I just stopped reading. But I think once you get a bad review in your mind, it'll keep playing over and over. And the difference of writing a book, even a fiction book, like people could be criticizing your characters, they could be criticizing your advice. With a memoir, they are criticizing you as a human. 2 stars for Jen as a human, like 2 out of 5. And so your decisions, your life choices, your character, your ethics, everything about you is up for dissection. And this is again not new. I'm used to this. I'm a public figure, right? I'm an influencer. People always criticize me. I'm used to getting hundreds of hate comments. And I would say that that's definitely been the hardest part. Is how to handle the feedback, how to not be affected by the feedback, how to put it aside in your own creation process and not let yourself pre-edit yourself based on somebody else's feedback. Because sometimes their feedback lives in your mind. So before you even know it, you're changing your output because you want to please these people that you're never going to please anyway. And so understanding that when something is this personal, you're doing it because A, it needs to be expressed, but B, because you're hoping that, like you said, people will resonate with it, that it will speak to the people who need to hear it. But especially online, there's a lot of people who just very easily critique and very easily say mean things. And so I think it's hard to disconnect when it is your life that you're writing about, and you just have to really have tough skin. And a therapist. I highly recommend a therapist.
I love therapy. Yes, 100%. Because it helps you build the confidence within yourself without external validation, which is something that I really struggled with for sure.
Absolutely.
Did you ever experience writer's block?
Yes, all the time. Even especially in my first book, I mean, it was just so painful. Uh, I would just sit there and like have like Chewbacca moments on the bed where I'd be like, oh, no, like, this is so hard. Um, I think some of the things I do to help with that, I do what I call a garbage draft. So I just get words on paper. You cannot edit a blank page, and you cannot get your thoughts out if you're sitting here reworking a sentence 20 times and you're just on this one sentence, right? You're like, oh, I don't know, should it have a comma? Should this be abbreviated? Like, no, garbage draft, no punctuation, no spelling, no capitalization, no anything, just blah on a page. And then I went here, and then I went that, and then I said this, and then and I think he said that too, like just verbal, like typing vomit. And I think from there, now you at least got out. What were the main things that stuck in your mind from this experience? What was it that stuck with you? You wrote it down. You were like, oh yeah, and I saw, and the sunset was really pretty, and I ate that delicious donut, and like so, like what were the things that you're remembering? And then once you have words on paper, you can go back and be like, okay, how do I sparse this up? Where do I put the dialogue? What do I want to put here for symbolism? But you cannot edit a blank page, and you will kill yourself just going back and forth on like even getting past the first paragraph. So garbage draft. I just tell myself it doesn't matter. Like typos don't matter. I'll know what I said. Like, none of that matters. Just stream of consciousness of telling what you want to say, and then you can work from there.
That is such good advice. I love that. You can't edit a blank page. Just get whatever down. That I love that. And that's a lot of that's something that a lot of people talk about, especially people who do you know the book The Artist's Way?
Yeah.
Yeah, where people you do your morning pages where it's just your stream of consciousness, and that's supposed to like get you going for the day. So that's kind of like what that reminded me of.
Definitely.
What are some self-care things you do when you do need to maybe like step away? You've been on the computer for hours and maybe you're like hitting a block. So like when you do step away, what are some self-care things that you do to take care of your mental and physical health?
Working out. And I think that that's something that really falls to the wayside when you're traveling sometimes. Yes, you're walking, these walkable cities, but I struggled last year with all my travel and not having a steady workout routine. And so I think that that really helps having something where you have a physical outlet. I think I saw on social media today somebody being like, "Oh yeah, my favorite posture is like the posture of a cooked shrimp," and I feel like that's basically me all day, right? Like I'm just home by myself, like typing or traveling. So doing normal things. Definitely the workouts are important, and that's always been for me even when I was studying for the bar. Like I would have nothing but just a hardcore day of studying, but it would be broken up by an hour of a workout and physical activity. Just getting yourself back in your body. Even during the bar exam itself, like that was one tip that they gave us. Like if you're panicking mid-exam, like go to the bathroom and do 10 push-ups and you'll get out of your head and into your body. And I think that's really important. So to de-stress because we overthink a lot. Um, I do love travel. I mean, it's a shame because it's my work, and so but I do feel like going to places and meeting people, seeing them share what they want to share with me, really does invigorate me. Especially when I'm on assignment. Like sometimes I'll just have taken a 7 a.m. flight. I land at 2 and I have to go straight to meet whoever it is that's waiting to meet me. I haven't even had a chance to go to the hotel or change. I'm in my airport clothes. I look a hot mess. But I always get there, and it's always such a privilege to be like, wow, so and so has been waiting for me to get here to share with me like their life work that they can't wait to present me like with everything. Like it's such an honor that it really does give me like a second wind, and I get just so excited to do that work. Um, I think lately I've started trying to take up more hobbies like painting. I had a painting I brought back from Panama that I didn't realize was the height and traveling in the flight that sometimes the acrylic paint can peel off. So I brought it back and the paint had peeled off. So I restored it. And that was a really fun project. So I think anything where you can get into your body and out of your mind, because we create so much from our mind. We're imagining things, we're putting things together, and so anything where you're just like, okay, give the mind a break. Like I could do something physical now and crafty or fun and enjoyable. I think that that's the way to go.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to travel, are there particular regions of the world or environments or cultures that you find more inspiring than others? Like what are your favorite, more creative, inspirational places you've been?
I will note that this is, and so that I don't talk about my woo woo side quite often. I feel like my books sometimes hint at them. But I will note that this is unique to each person. And I would encourage people who are open to it to look at their own astrocartography because a location that I might find inspiring for me may not be inspiring for somebody else. And that is really, it's basically like your astrology, but for it based on a map. And it'll tell you like this place is really good for healing. This place is really good for like luck and prosperity and things like that. And so for me, I have had like I really enjoyed the Middle East. Like Jordan was one of the most amazing places I've ever been to. Egypt is incredible. Like the energy there for me is really invigorating, and it may not be that way for other people. And so I think it really depends on you and who you are. And I think if you're curious, that the astrocartography chart is a great way to start. But for me, yeah, anywhere in the Middle East, I really enjoy. I think, and also because maybe growing up in the U.S., we had this idea of what the Middle East was like, and so when I went there, and I was like, actually, this is awesome. Actually, I could live like a princess here, like wearing these gorgeous princess gowns and these like really opulent palace settings. Like this is amazing. And so I've had nothing but great experiences, thankfully, during my time visiting the region. Also, like Central South America. I would say Central America definitely holds a spot in my heart, like Guatemala, Belize, this area that I was Lonely Planets, Central America guidebook editors. So I definitely enjoy the region. It's very meaningful to me. And I think you can visit it for affordable and do a lot of really cool things there, like hike an active volcano and sleep in a hobbit house kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree with you more. I love the Middle East. I need to do more traveling in that region. But one of my favorite places that I have found most inspirational for me is like Marrakesh, Morocco, because it's so beautiful and
Ooh.
colorful. And I went there alone, and there are a lot of people that were like, "Oh my God, you're going to Morocco alone," and I they had like they were nervous for me, not for bad reasons, but I do think like the Middle East and North Africa are extremely misunderstood, and it's such a beautiful place, so hospitable. Everyone was so kind. I had a wonderful experience, and so I wish everyone could go, and it just experience that, because it's so different than, I'll speak as like a Northeastern American. It's so different from that part of the world. And so I couldn't agree with you more, because it's just so beautiful and so different. And yeah, I love Marrakesh, and I really want to go to like I've flown through like the UAE. I haven't like been outside of the airport though, so it doesn't really count. I've heard really good things about Oman. Of course, Egypt is like so high on my list, because I'm also a scuba diver. So I'd love to scuba in Egypt with all the shipwrecks. And so I totally agree with you. I love those cultures. They're so colorful.
Incredible. And I have a friend who lives in Oman. So if you decide to head that way, let me know and I'll put you in contact with her.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind. I really appreciate it. So something I saw on your Instagram that I would love to talk about is you just got a puppy. Tell me about your puppy. And also, I'm also a dog mom. I have 2 dogs, and it can be hard to travel a lot, especially when you have a big responsibility at home. So tell me about your puppy, but 2, do you have any advice, or how are you kind of handling someone who's on the road and traveling a lot, but you also have, a fur baby now?
He's still so little. So he's only 4 months old. I got him because it's been a long time of doing this now. So it's been like 10 years in this industry, 7 years full time, and 20 years of living on my own. And so it's been good, but I've noticed that when I came home, it's my own, and I like it that way, right? It's clean how I left it, everything's still in the fridge. But I just wanted there to be a little bit more life in my home, more love, something to come home to. And so that's the transition point where I'm in now. I have no regrets over how I spent the last 7 years. It's been incredible. But I did hope to make a shift so that I could make room for more in my life. I want more love. And so I want the puppy to fill my days with love. I would like to build a family. And it's very hard to do when you're on the road. So I got the puppy on purpose to help me put down some roots, and to be that gateway to more routine, structure, normalcy. Um, I actually have a lot of plans to be traveling with him, but I had to turn down my first paid press trip because of him recently this week. Because I have a good dog sitter, but it was just so many factors. I was going to be leaving 2 weeks after for my brother's wedding in Colombia, so it was really close in time. The trip ended up being longer than I thought it would be. But I'm not going to lie, I had a moment where I was like, oh man, I'm turning down paid press trips now to like international destinations. This is a problem. Um, so, but honestly, I just think it would have it worked out the way that it should have. I'm excited for someone else to have that opportunity to go on that trip. And for me, I do see us traveling more. So I actually do have big plans for him. And next year for us to travel the US for the 250th anniversary of the country. So I hope that we can do more traveling around the country and do some unity work. I think everybody likes dogs. I think right now we're in a really tough time in the US. We're seeing a lot of travel be impacted here domestically, with international travel, severely reduced, all these new visa fees and tariffs and everything happening. So I've kind of had the writing on the wall that the next couple of years might be a little bit difficult travel wise, international travel wise. And so I made a conscious decision to, with the dog, focus on exploring more of the US and focus on positive, uplifting stories of bringing the US together, hopefully through common ground of everybody loves puppies.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. Yes, I totally agree. Who wouldn't love dogs? And I've gotten to travel with my dog. I have 2 now, but I first had 1, and my boyfriend and I got her kind of spontaneously, but we were traveling a lot. And then I had this like anxiety sort of like ridden moment where I was like, oh my God, is this going to make everything so much harder? And truthfully, it does add a level of complication to things, but it's also, there's no way around it. But also like, I will say like what I've found as like a huge benefit that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise had I not had a dog is it opens up your world in ways that you can't even like predict. Like, for example, like my boyfriend and I, it makes you like filter places through dog friendliness, you know? And so it's a cool way to kind of explore an area. And sure, it is limiting in some ways if you look at it like that, but I view it as no, it takes you down paths that you wouldn't have otherwise gone down. And if you are walking around a new city with a dog, you're naturally going to stop and talk to people. People are going to stop you and be like, hey, can I pet your dog? Your dog's so cute. Like, and so it's also helped me like meet a lot more people, which is really cool. And like we took, my dog's name is Tatiana. We took Tatiana to a Renaissance fair and got her a little outfit. We've taken her to the beach. We've taken her to the mountains. So I can't recommend traveling with your dog enough. I love it. It does complicate things. It does make things harder, but I think it's worth it. And I love that you feel the same way for sure.
Thank you. That's so reassuring. I can't wait to see pictures of you and your pup touring because you're going to be doing the Wolf Hotel job.
Yes, yes. So the first video is already out. So
Ooh.
really quickly for listeners who don't know what we're talking about, one of the opportunities that Jen has sent out on her newsletter, where she sends out a lot of travel jobs and opportunities, were for this dog app company called Woofs, and they were looking for a human and a dog to review these dog-friendly hotels. And so I found the opportunity through your newsletter. I applied, I got it, which was like crazy because I didn't think I would. Because sometimes you apply to these things and you kind of think you're like sending your information into a black hole. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I randomly got this opportunity. But the first video is out on YouTube. It was done locally in New York, and I'm waiting to hear back about other opportunities in different cities. So it's still being worked out on the back end.
I love that.
But now
amazing.
you can do something very similar. I'm sure there will be other similar opportunities for travelers and their dogs.
Oh, definitely. And since I have my own tradition of always celebrating my birthday, I've also already begun thinking ahead that I want to do the same thing for the dog. So I think we're going to have one of his birthdays like at the Plaza Hotel, and maybe like for like a big birthday, we can go to the Versailles Palace Hotel because they accept dogs too, and they even have like a Versailles agility course.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but these are the things that like go through my mind.
Can I be your dog? Like, oh my God, that sounds like amazing. There's this Instagram account of this guy who travels with his foster dog to like, he's been to 30 different countries. I think the handle is Away on Earth. Have you heard of him?
Yes, I think so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it the little white dog?
Yeah, yeah. And it was like a
Yeah.
foster dog. And yeah, the dog's been to like more countries than I have. And I'm just like, can I be your dog? Like, this is insane. Like, I'm so jealous of your dog. Your dog's going to have an amazing life. That's incredible. I want to go to the Versailles Hotel. Jealous. Well, I'm excited to follow you and your dog around on all your future adventures.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask because I think I've gotten this as someone. So like I went to journalism school and I've recently been making the transition into like travel specific journalism, but I wasn't doing that before. But a lot of things that have been said to me are things like, oh, like you're not going to make any money, or that's so hard. And like, you know, a lot of like really negative comments, but they don't mean it negative. I think it comes from a place of worry of like, how are you going to take care of yourself? And you write a lot about, no, it is possible to be a freelance writer. And you talked earlier about diversifying income. So when people do say sort of those kind of, they don't mean to be discouraging, but they are, it's like, it is discouraging sometimes to hear. Like, what do you respond to them?
It's very hard for people to understand what you do. So you really shouldn't be listening to this from anybody who doesn't do what you do or understand what you do, because they do not get it. They just don't. They think that you're traveling and that it's been a fluke, that you've somehow made money up until now, but that you don't actually have anything steady, that you don't have any skills, that it's not a business. Um, and in the same way that you can't listen to the critiques of people, you cannot listening to the limiting, like that is their ceiling. And there's so many people, like I love my mom, bless her, love her, she's been nothing but supportive of me, but it is very difficult for my mom to understand how I make money. She comes from a generation where you make money in a very particular way. So anytime I've had any moment of doubt, anytime I've had any moment of this platform is completely disappearing, what do I do now? My mom's go-to is always, well, you have to go to like the classified, you have to find a job. And I'm just like, that's not the solution. That's not the path here. And I know why you think that's the path, because that's what you've seen as the proven path. But to me, it actually feels limiting. Like it stifles me to think of like working now for a set hourly wage because I know how much potential there is online that I like for me to just be physically somewhere and to be making a set amount of money for that time. Like it just feels so much more limiting now. And I think that that's something that once you realize how you're able to scale your knowledge, how you're able to scale products, to have a global customer base, right? It's just an industry that it didn't happen. I think a lot about door-to-door salesmen that were a big deal, like back as early as like the 60s, the 70s, right? Like 50 years ago, they were very common. And if you wanted to make a sale, you had to go and you had to canvass a neighborhood, you had to knock on 100 doors, and maybe you saw like one set of encyclopedias. And now, with the way that the internet works and the way that we're all connected, like you can knock on 100 doors in an instant with like the click of a button, and you can be in people's inboxes, and you can do that same version of solicitation without anywhere near the same kind of physical effort and output. And so I really just think that it's a matter. I think that there's two kind of fields now of what we're going into, which is either you're really good at a trade and manual labor, which will never go out of business, right? AI will not take your work if you're like a plumber, an electrician, like anything like that. Like I think that's a great way to go, and you have guaranteed job security. Or you're making money off of the things that you know and the skills that you have, and you have to learn how to continue to scale that and present that across different platforms as things are constantly shifting. As AI comes and takes over this, as this platform no longer exists, like you have to kind of be willing to now play in this like mental chessboard. And I think that either one is a good way to go, but you should pick one or the other. Because I think otherwise it's really tough. And so I think it's tough otherwise to make a living. And I think you're always going to have people who tell you you can't make money doing this. People are making money all the time. Even people who were like, during the pandemic, a lot of people made money. Now, this year, with the recession, everything happening, everybody's in a panic. There's mass media layoffs. I have known like very deeply there will be people that come out of this year like winners. There will, because in every area, there's a possibility for you to succeed. And so I think first, like to do this, you really have to have the mindset. Like mindset is 99.99% of doing this work, unless you have a full-time job and you're doing this on the side. But if you're doing this full-time, you have to have the mindset of what I do is valuable. I have knowledge. I have different ways to monetize. Like you have to really be thinking that way. If you allow yourself to fall to the sky is falling, this is happening, there's a horrible economy, everything is horrible, like you will falter. So I don't know how to tell you except that no one knows how you make money but you, and no one knows how many ways there are to make money but you that's constantly in the space. Like because I share so many opportunities, I constantly see so many different ways to make money. Like there's just so many. And so for my mom to be like, I guess you have to go now and like get a job at a grocery store. And those are actually really solid jobs. Like the grocery store people, like they get equity, like they get better benefits than most people I know at Publix here. But it's just not, I think it's not, it's apples and bananas. It's one way that you know how to make money, but you have no idea that they're not even aware of this world that exists and the potential and how much money is there. They just can't conceptualize it. So I wouldn't take advice from anybody who has no idea what you're doing or how you make money.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely grew up kind of in like a similar like environment where unless you were working for like a big corporation, like the thought of like making money independently is just like not a thing that sometimes like my parents or like the people that I grew up around like understand. And I'm just like, no, I like freelancing is it's a thing, like but sometimes people don't get it, and it's not that it comes from a genuine place of caring and worrying, but sometimes it is like discouraging to hear. But I think your advice is wonderful, and it goes back to what you're saying of like stay in your own lane, don't look to your left or your right, just keep moving forward, and like Super Mario, bounce from brick to brick, as you were saying earlier.
And it's hard. Like it's easier said than done, especially because people are so loud about like, you can't make money doing this. Everything is going awful. Oh my God, this guy is falling. And so it is really hard to stay tunnel vision. But I honestly do think that that's the best thing you can do as an entrepreneur.
For sure. Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome?
All the time. All the time. Yes, and it's so weird. I think I actually experience it more than most people, because I am such a high achieving person, and so I have such like high standards for myself. And it's really interesting because my brother, who's the opposite of me, right? Bless him, but he's just never really aimed to be super high achieving. Like he's always, I guess he saw that I was that, so he like carved out his own niche of like being likable without necessarily like all the awards. And it's so funny because every time I talk to him, I always have a panic in my head, right? It's just like the anxiety I live with, and like so I'm always doubting and overthinking. And it's so funny because every time I talk to him, he's always just like so confused because he doesn't like he's like you're like literally one of like, the most successful person I know. He's like you have the highest degree, you've done all these things. He's like I don't understand at all why you have imposter syndrome. And I'm like because I don't have this or because I haven't done this. And I think that's what happens when you put a lot of I think that's why they say ignorance is bliss, right? Because if you just don't know and you don't care, you can go on about your life pretty confident and like unbothered. But when you are constantly worried about being the best you can and putting on the best performance and like getting, you get in your own head, and yeah, I think you can get imposter syndrome because you're internalizing the mean comments that people have made, and you're, worried about how things are going to be received. And it's again constant mindset work, and you have to just keep picking yourself up, and there's never going to be a point where you're like, oh, I'm done, my mindset is fortified, no comments will ever pierce this armor. Like it's every single day that you have to keep working on this.
For sure. When you are experiencing thoughts of imposter syndrome, what do they sound like to you?
My thoughts are really intrusive and really crazy. Like my brain is really a crazy hostile place to be sometimes. Really mean. I think of what was the example of what I was saying the other day. I was talking to my mom the other day and she said something, and I was like, my brain immediately came up with five objections to that. And it was like, no, you can't do that. No, you haven't done that. Like immediately it came up with so many like negative objections of how I would expect all the most negative things to be directed at me. So it's really hard. I mean, it's just really awful things that my brain says, just like, you haven't done it, you can't do it, like you suck at this, like so many self-deprecating things. And so I really have to consciously make the choice to be like, no, that's not true. No, I don't have evidence to that, because I do hear a lot of negative, intrusive thoughts. And you just have to choose to nurture the other ones. Like I said, every single day it's a mindset thing.
Yeah, for sure. That's really good advice. Um, what is your definition of success?
I'm freedom. So I think my definition of success is that you're able to spend your time how you see it. You don't feel like you're obliged to sit in an office just to make that set hourly wage, right? That something about that really irks me. Like I have to be a warm body in a chair just to be here, just to make you feel better. That's also why I share a lot of remote opportunities, because I think the push to go back to the office is dumb. And you're like, I don't like being micromanaged. I don't like feeling like I'm under somebody's thumb. I don't like feeling like they're like I'm the puppet and they're the puppeteer, right? And so I feel like what for me is success is I'm the puppet of my own life. Like I decide what strings to pull and I decide what I do. And maybe that's more stressful, but it's freedom to make my own decisions, to decide how I spend my time, to decide how I spend my money. And that to me is the ultimate version of success. I can have, you know, I could be making millions of dollars annually, and if I am being micro, like I've been there, I've been at the like wonderful law firm that has the floor to ceiling windows, and people walk in and then they're like, oh my goodness, your office is gorgeous. And I'm like, and then the whole time I'm thinking, I freaking hate it here. I don't handcuffs, save me. And so I don't think that that's free. That's not freedom to me. So, and that's not success. So success to me is freedom to choose what your life looks like and not have anybody mandating that you do things that you don't want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Could you tell me about maybe a challenge or a mistake you made or a failure that ended up teaching you a really important lesson that you take with you to this day?
Mm, I have so many things that came to mind, and I was like, no, that's not appropriate. No, we shouldn't share that. So I have to filter through things. Um, this is again coming from like the pre-editing of how is this going to be received when I share it. It's just something that happens in my mind automatically. Um, I would say I learned very early on to I don't disparage destinations, and I don't say bad things about a place. Um, even Buenos Aires, where I had like my own personal not great experience there. If people ask me like, what place would you never travel again? What's the least place to travel? Like, I don't really bring it up because other people could have completely different experiences there, and one interaction in a country does not speak for the whole country. And so I think I learned very early. I don't do negative posts. So you won't see me doing the post of these are the 5 countries I hated, I didn't visit. I usually just err on the side of saying nothing. If it's something where there is like a safety concern, I would make a post about that in general. But I don't disparage and I don't do negative videos or anything that discourages people from going to a destination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally understandable. Thank you for explaining that. Um, what are some things that you want to do in your career that you haven't yet?
I would love to I would love to have my book turned into a TV show or movie.
Ooh, that would be so
So,
cool.
especially now, right? Solo traveling with Tracy Ellis Ross is an idea very similar to one I've been pitching since 12 Trips in 12 Months came out. Like this idea of going to these resorts, being by yourself, like and showing that process. And so we have a couple of different like pitch ideas out with variations on that. So that would be a goal of mine. I'd love to see it adapted, just be like when there was a movie that just came out on Netflix. It was also about a year-long thing, but the mother had passed away and she had left like the life list, that's what it was called. And she had left like a list of things for the girl to do in the year. And so I was watching that and I was like, this is very similar to my challenge. I feel like this is, so all these travel movies I see, I feel like it could be a way to have more impact and really, show the people that at 29 life isn't over, like and represent those women. I feel like this demographic of women, this solo traveling, maybe hasn't necessarily had this picture perfect like white picket fence, 2 kids, husband kind of thing. Like that demographic very much exists more so now than ever as women are getting married later, and women are more accomplished and women are like these amazing successful women. And so I think that I would love to see that demographic better represented somehow. I would love to better build out my own. So I've been traveling a lot, and like I said, I'm trying to find a mix between roots and wings right now. So I'd love to build out my own like products and coaching and things of the sort, which is what I'm working more on now because traveling takes a lot out of me and I want to be healthy and I want to have a very balanced life. So those are goals. Dog travel, broadening the impact, and hopefully some mass media project that can better target and represent that solo travel demographic.
Well, I really hope that comes to life. I will definitely watch it if it ever comes to fruition. So that's very exciting.
Thank you.
So 12 trips in 12 months, you went on this journey when you were about to turn 30, and that was a couple years ago, and now you're in your mid-30s. So I'm curious, do you have any plans similar to this or maybe something totally different to celebrate when you're 39 about to turn 40?
Yes, but I haven't flushed it out yet because right now my immediate plan is with the dog and what we're doing next year. So depending on how well that does and if he becomes a superstar, then we may have different plans where I would have to incorporate him. Um, I've thought about it. Like I had a friend that did like 50 dares before 50 kind of thing. I've thought about maybe doing UNESCO sites. I've thought about doing like hitting my seventh continent and going to Antarctica. So I've thought about what are some cool goals that I could do. Definitely an idea. It's just not flushed out. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's sooner than I thought. I mean, next year is 38. I guess I just haven't thought beyond next year, but yeah, it'll be the year after next year. So it should be the next thing I'm planning. Um, Yes, I have thought about it, and yes, I do always do something birthday wise that's a big deal, and I will absolutely be ringing in the 40th with in a big way.
Well, I'm excited to see whatever challenge or goal that you end up doing, I guess in 2 years or 2 or 3 years from now. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, it's very sad, Waverly. You just reminded me how old I am. It's
I'm
so
sorry.
fast.
Well, your book inspired me because I turn 30 next March. So I still have like 6 or 7 months. But as I was listening to your book, I was like, oh, I should plan a big trip for my 30th. And I'm thinking about it. I haven't put pen to paper or like committed to anything yet, but it's a seed that's cooking in my brain right now of what I want to do for my 30th. And it'll definitely be travel related for sure. So you definitely inspired at least one person to do something.
Good. Please do. It's a big deal. And that's the best time of the year to travel.
Yeah. I'm thinking about Cape Town because Cape Town has been like number one on my list for so many years, but it's so far and it's like a big, commitment. And I'm just like, well, 30 is a big deal. So I might as well do a big go all out for it.
Yes, I support this.
Oh, thank you. All right, Jen, this has been wonderful. Are you ready to move into the lightning round?
I am.
Okay. What is something new that you've tried lately?
I'm going to say that painting class that I mentioned. Other than that, raising a puppy.
Love it. That's a lot of work for sure. That definitely is a very time consuming thing to do. Do you have a lesson or a message that you want to share with listeners?
Book the flight first, figure out the details later.
Love it. What is one thing you wish you knew when you were starting out?
Everybody's just figuring it out as they go along.
Absolutely. All right, Jen, this has been so wonderful. It's been so amazing hearing your story and connecting with you because I've been like a lurker of your content for a long time. So I'm glad we finally kind of got to meet. And yeah, big fan of your work. Where can everybody find you, check out your work, support you, all of the things? Tell us everything.
Thank you so much. You can find me at jenonajetplane.com, like leaving on a jet plane, Jen on a jet plane. Jen has one N. And then on social media under that same handle at Jen on a jet plane, TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and on Amazon, my books are under Jen Ruiz.
And how can people subscribe to your newsletter?
You go to jetplanecrew.substack.com and you can find my newsletter there with travel deals and opportunities.
Awesome. Yes, I found so many through those through her newsletters. So everyone listening, if you're interested in traveling and finding travel related work, definitely subscribe. I don't pay for that many Substacks, but I pay for yours because I've just found so much value. And whatever amount I've paid monthly for your subscription, I've made like tenfold through opportunities that you send out. Like genuinely, I'm not even like joking. So yeah. Anyway, Jen, thank you so much. This has been incredible. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.